Sorry, during the Bucks series, and so like I against a team where we really couldn't afford to just be with Durant because as we all thought like the Bucks, the winner of that series, we all thought was going to be the title winner. And look, I totally echo what Bam says. I think you look at the Suns, and I think this idea that like Chris Paul um, has conquered all playoff demons is like kind of asinine. Like he got through. I mean, like honestly, like he like Davis. I mean, the Lakers. I was watching that game 4. The Lakers were going to go up 3-1 before the Davis injury happened in I think like the second or third quarter of game 4. He then plays the Nuggets without Murray, who they sweep, and Michael Porter Jr.'s back was acting up again, and then he gets to play the Clippers without Kawhi. I mean, like at a certain point, you have to deal. I get that injuries are part of reality, but you also have to deal with like what's actually likely to happen again, and that's why for me it's hard to go that crazy about the injury stuff because like Kyrie obviously gets hurt, but if Kyrie had the injury in the regular season as opposed to the playoffs, like we're not talking about this stuff. If Harden,
Right.
who gets hurt, actually had his first injury with the Nets, and look, Eve, as you're saying, you might be totally right, and this could be the beginning of something bad with Harden because he's getting older and he's heavy, but I don't know. I still think that like what they did to the Bucks those first 2 games, even without Harden, was so unbelievable. I mean, even them winning for anyone who was there. Like I know I was there at game 1, and I was like, oh great, this is like this team is completely cursed. And little did I know they might be with the Kyrie injury, but like even them still like putting together wins over the Bucks by a lot in game 1, and we saw how much they had struggled in game 5 and 7 at home, and that was totally different. Just having Kyrie there or not. Like I don't know. So it's hard for me to think that they're in this dark place. But obviously they have stuff to do with the roster this summer.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I just want to say I agree with you guys. It's kind of like there's like a small voice inside of me that's saying these things that agrees with everything that you're saying, but then there's this like because I'm so freaking sad that
I think
all
you
these
got
negative thoughts.
you got your first dose of net fan reality. And if people wonder why I'm pessimistic, this is why. I always anticipate something will go wrong.
I was a Knicks fan. I've suffered more in the time that I can remember. I've suffered way more than Nets fans have. You guys have had a couple of good years. I have some Howard Isley years. I have Weatherspoon.
Dude, we had a 12-70 season.
I feel like the Knicks' whole first 10 years in the 2000s was like one long 12-70 season over 10 years. It's horrible.
Here's the real scary part. The scary part is if this happens again.
Yep.
Are these guys even here for a third season? Are they going to sign extensions this offseason or
that's
not?
a good question.
If they don't sign extensions, that tells you that there's a let's keep our options open idea. And even if they signed an extension, I understand there would be opt-outs after, probably 2 years into it. But you want to be able to at least be guaranteed 2 seasons more with these guys. Because like you said, they pumped it the first year, knowing Durant would be hurt. This year got dismantled by the injury. Mm-hmm. If it happens again, it could be over and done with as quick as it began.
Look, if they don't, if they don't sign extensions with them this summer, then there's also way bigger issues than not only like them winning. That would basically tell me that there's something within the organization that's not as awesome as what's been being told. Because, I mean, to be honest, the 3 of them are not spring chickens. They're not old, but they're not fucking young. And so
Sean Marks didn't seem positive. He didn't seem confident today. It was very weird. He went in the press conference. He was like, he was asked about this, and Sean Marks' response was, "Well, we're committed to them," almost as if he was trying to say, "Well, we're not sure if they're committed to us."
I mean, you have to assume these conversations have happened already, in some way, shape, or form, right? These guys are integral parts of the organization. They're not your average employee and your average player who shows up to practice, does their job, and goes home. They're discussing organizational decisions with them in mind. So you have to think that conversation has come up. I'm assuming before he traded for James, they, gauged his interest in how long do you expect to be here? What are you thinking long term for your career? Because if he was like, well, I'm going to just come here for 2 years, I'm going to go finish my career somewhere else, that's a different story. These are things we're just not privy to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the. I personally think that they're all gonna. I think they're all gonna be here for more than at least like 1 year, whether they start doing 1-and-1s or whatever. But I mean, look, you're talking about 3 guys who obviously have made a lot of money and obviously are probably good enough to, or pretty close to being good enough to like still get hurt and still get some type of deal. But I mean, but I don't know. I mean, like you look at, let's just go like player by player. You look at Durant, like he moved all his offices here. His like 35 Ventures office is like legitimately 3 blocks away from where I live, and obviously his like right hand man manager is from New York, and it seems like he wants to be here and post up here. Kyrie I know that Kyrie's not one for keeping all of his promises, but Kyrie has basically said as much as he can about how this is home, and Harden seems like he wants to play with the two of them for a while, and that they're getting along. So it's hard for me to think that they're not signing. Obviously, I'm a neurotic Net fan, so I'm gonna be nervous about them until the ink is completely dry. But I don't know. I would legitimately be in a league where it's hard to be shocked. I would be pretty surprised if the 3 of them aren't signed up for at least another 2 years, including next year, if not 3 or 4.
Yeah, I'm not gonna enjoy basketball until they win a championship, or if they leave or whatever. It's just gonna be nerve-wracking because everything is gonna, we're gonna be looking at these guys like ticking time bombs. But
I don't look at it like that.
I think
I really don't. I think all their games will age well. Maybe besides Kyrie.
I don't know.
But even if Kyrie becomes, I agree, but I think even if first of all, Kyrie was in the best shape of his life this year. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Like, he was, like, you look at pictures of him. I was watching that video of KD doing like those moves at the Olympic camp, and you look at Kyrie and like his face was rounder, and he was like kind of like a bigger dude. Like, he was in phenomenal.
He doesn't eat meat anymore.
Yeah, he's
a vegan. He doesn't even get eggs protein, or fish.
Durant was clearly like, I mean, from like honestly, it felt like from a cardio standpoint, like Durant playing like 50 minutes or like back to back games was not something that he was doing ever. Like, so I don't know. I mean, the thing, like, I try not to be a prisoner of the moment, because I think in sports it's really hard not to do that. And like the way that I just feel about the season is like, even if every team was healthy, I think they're getting through the East with ease, and like maybe they would have run into some trouble with the Lakers, but like if they make it to the finals and lose, or even win a title, none of us are nervous at all about them leaving. And I think Durant and Harden and Irving, like, they don't have anyone to blame, or like a coaching decision, or like even the Joe Harris thing. Like, at the end of the day, they all know that like if Harden and Kyrie stay healthy, they're probably good. Like, this wasn't like some roster failure by Marks. Like, a lot of the guys that they brought in were people that they themselves wanted. Like, that's
what people are like. Oh, they traded all their depth away. Like, great. So like Atlanta has depth, but take Trae Young off the team. Not even 2 guys. Just take Trae Young off the team. Tell me how that depth does.
Right, that's my exact point. Is like, so if you're like, I think KD and Kyrie and Harden are all pretty rational, and my point is just what was on the roster that could have been on the roster that Marks really made a swing.
I think LaMarcus Aldridge. Mute your phone, whoever that was. I think Sean Marks sees clearly that there needs to be changes. Right? He said there will be changes. What does that mean? What kind of changes are they going to make?
This goes into my exact point that I said to you a bunch of times, which is that and I got into arguments with a ton of people, which was that the Nets are beyond capped out, and so if they know, and they must be talking to him because he's a Rock Nation client and whatnot, if they know that Dinwiddie wanted his own team and wants to go to fucking Detroit or Chicago or Sacramento or whoever it is, then then it was malpractice for them to not trade him, because that was an asset and a spot where they could have matched salaries and gotten another guy, another ball handler. So like if Dinwiddie leaves and they get nothing for him, that's a big miss, because that you can't. The worst thing you can do in this league is lose assets for nothing. That cannot happen.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, you want to give Marks a pass for everything because he's built a super team, and we appreciate him. But that he would be fumbling the bag if we get nothing for Dinwiddie.
Well, look, if the Kelly Oubre thing was real, I mean that's shocking that they would turn that down under these circumstances.
The only way you turn that down is if you feel like if we had Dinwiddie last night, we win the championship. I mean, I think we go forward. If at Dinwiddie chucking will do better than 3 of 9. Joe Harris for the series, Joe Harris and Ben Simmons shot the same from 3. That, like, think about that.
It's tough to explain that.
If it's very tough. It's mental. It can only be mental. It can only be what was that guy's name? Anderson played for the Orlando Magic back in the Penny and Shaq days. He just got the yips at the free throw line. Do you guys remember that? Nick Anderson, yes. Do you remember that, Bam?
I don't remember him getting the yips, but I was like 8 or 9 years old when he was playing.
Oh, man. Look, dude was a shooter. More scorer than shooter, but, one of those, mid-90s shooters and scorers. And he got the
he
yips.
was like he was the same player as Hersey Hawkins.
A little bit more, like, modern than Hersey Hawkins. Like, he was like, I'm having a hard time like a smaller Tim Thomas type of thing. He was athletic, but he could shoot.
Just threes. A different era, man. Like players are just so different now.
You don't have he could not play in today's NBA.
The Joe Harris thing to me is interesting, because I actually think we're hitting on a point that I think a lot of places haven't talked about, which is that, look, I've already done my spiel about how I think it's like. What was so frustrating about the Joe Harris thing was that every single guy on the team, you really felt like stepped up to the plate and had like at least a pretty good series, or even if they didn't have a great series, it was because they were hurt, with like the Jeff Green thing, or the Blake, or obviously Harden's playing on a horrible hammy. But the huge thing that you see is this is why playing with a KD and a Harden, but really playing with like a KD it's so imperative to have guys that step up to the plate, because at the end of the day, you're kind of dealing with history. Like when you look back at like a Jordan, like he got the Paxson 3, he got the Kerr 3. Like you need guys who have cojones and like step up and make big shots. And if you're not ready to be there, like you can't be on the floor. And like if there was any, and I don't really want to criticize Nash, because I honestly think he was like, I think he didn't really have much to deal with, and I think like blaming him is just like a few.
That was where I was going next. Is like how much of this is on Nash? Bam, you're the Nash killer. How much of this is on him?
His handling of Game 3. How many times did I say? They would blow late game leads. They had bad execution down the stretch in a lot of games. In a lot of games that they won, they bumbled their way to the finish. And I said those are the kind of things that can come back, and you lose that game in the playoffs, and it changes a series. And the only thing I'll kill him for is Game 3.
But even in Game 3, like I'm beating up on Joe Harris because he deserves it.
But they're separate. They're separate entities.
And
the player not hitting his shot
But if he
something the
makes
coach cannot.
one shot,
But